Remember how they said Long Legs is like the scariest movie of the decade? No, it was fine. It wasn't that scary. It wasn't scary at all, really. This though, this is so scary that a person like me who does not like possession movies was possessed to talk to you about it. It possessed me. I'm here. I'm sorry, that was bad. But also, when I got home after the movie, I was hearing like muffled voices. I live in a basement, okay? And I'm hearing muffled voices, which I don't normally hear. I'm hearing like, and I don't think I'm experiencing psychosis. I think I'm a very sane person. Namaste. But I don't like the fact that I think after this ends, I'll have to investigate the source of that sound to go to sleep because it felt weird. I was at a window, I went to the sink, looked at the toilet, it wasn't running. There's like this just muffled, low frequency sound, and it's haunting me. And that's how good this movie is, that I'm coming home thinking about what could exist in my dwelling with me. Oh, it's water running. All right. No, I'm not even acting like I was hearing. All right. Woo. Let's talk about this movie. So Evie is a co-host of the podcast Undertone. It's a paranormal podcast that she hosts alongside her co-host, Justin. Justin has a great voice. Never see him on screen. Sure, he's handsome. Beautiful voice. Great podcasting voice. Exceptional casting there. Okay, so her and Justin have a paranormal podcast, but Evie is also the sole caregiver of her dying mother. Her mother's comatose. She's never really there or cognizant. There's no signs of life in her mother. So as far as we can tell as an audience, Evie's a pretty lonely gal. She has a boyfriend, on the edges of her life. Clearly a terrible guy, not very supportive of her situation. And then Justin, her longtime friend / co-host, is definitely like the rock of her life, the stable figure in her life. But, it's hinted at that she had an alcohol problem, and clearly she's isolated, so she must be lonely. And there's other things happening in her personal life that kind of complicate this process of the movie. But anyway, so Evie's here, her mom's here. Those are the only two characters you see on screen. Justin's there via audio because he's a podcast host, and they host it remotely. So they kind of just tap in online and then record their sessions. And then you do hear other voices from other people, because at one point, this podcast must be pretty big, because at one point they're doing a live recording and people are calling in. You can't do that with a 60 subscriber YouTube channel, I'll tell you that. All right, so anyway, long story short, a random email with like a funky web address or email address sends in these 10 voice messages, and they get increasingly odd. And our characters discuss and investigate them piece by piece. So let's say they take 2 at a time, and they do like a chunk of an episode. They record in a very weird style. They definitely don't like do a one-take session, which I think most podcasters would do. Instead, they kind of take a chunk of the voice messages, dissect them, investigate, etc., and then do another chunk a couple days later, just when their schedule permits. Again, this is all virtual. So we're kind of hearing chunks of the story being told via audio message. You're not having dialogue-driven audio message. You're hearing a woman sleep, and then the events that happen in her sleep and right upon her awakening. So not a lot of conversation there, but you're hearing noises, you're hearing voices, you're hearing muffled sounds, and it gets worse and worse and worse. Possession movie. So how does this pertain to our main characters? We don't know. I mean, there's a common thread between the woman being possessed and one of our main characters here. You can assume who. And then that's kind of what the movie's about, is why does this demonic creature possess certain types of people? Okay, so what do I think about this movie? While I love horror, I do not love possession movies. I don't believe in anything, and I just don't like that exposure to that sort of stuff, to be honest. It makes me feel a little bit weird. Honestly, a little bit scared. But this was really effective. I felt not terrified, but I felt chills at times. It was a daunting task to get through this, but I mean that as a compliment. Pacing is not great, so it is a little bit slow. You're kind of looking at your watch this was an hour and a half based off the screen time on the app, or the runtime on the app. I should not be looking at my watch in an hour and a half movie, but I was. So there's some pacing issues here. But that being said, this movie was absolutely riveting for me. The sense of dread is persistent from the onset, and while it's a slow burn, for the most part, that's more of a feature than a bug, because you feel Evie's life, the monotony of her life is sad. She's taking care of a mother who can't speak, talk, or move. She has a terrible boyfriend. Her only sense of hope is a character she plays in a podcast. And by character, I don't mean that she's in a role. She's not herself, pardon the double negative, but she is definitely amped up in the podcast and then kind of just slouched down in life. And you can tell she's in a mood and in a mode in the podcast recordings. So it's kind of sad to see that this woman doesn't have much to live for. right now at least, because the circumstances are bad. And for the most part, actually no, in its entirety, this movie takes place in one setting. It's the mom's house. Evie's mother's house is like decked out in religious iconography and relics and little trinkets. So it's like creepy. If you've ever been in an old person's house, especially in the South, like bro, that everywhere is just like some creepy stuff, even if it's not intended to be that. I remember my grandparents' house. They had this whole room. There's two beds, two twin beds that I guess my aunt used to sleep in when they were younger, and like Cabbage Patch type dolls like all over the walls. Like all, I'm not even kidding, all over the walls. Some nasty floral like comforter on the beds. It was gross. It smelled stale in there, but it was just scary. And it's like when we visited, like when I was younger, I had to sleep in that room, and there's dolls. Anyway, you get it. So yes, this movie is already in a creepy house. It feels lived in though. It's a real house. It's not like a horror movie prop house where you feel like, yeah, nobody lives like this. It's a real situation. It just happens to be from an older person, and older people like creepier things. And then one of the biggest parts, the best parts of this movie is that the use of sound is exceptional. So sound is an element here that is very much on Front Street, in the sense that there are moments where there's a lot of noise, like distorting noise, disrupting noise. Like you just hear voices stacking on each other. You hear a clock ticking very loudly. The podcast, like once it starts and you hear Evie put her headphones on, it kind of becomes silent. Everything is very well executed in an audio sense. And visually, like visually, this is very interesting because this is not a big house, 2 stories, but you only really see about 5 rooms. And there are moments where the camera kind of like tilts a room and then it mirrors the room. So there's 2 parts of it. And it's just like very creepy. And the way they take little angles for different shots, like you'll see this like same little hallway. And on the right side of that hallway, you see the opening where Evie's recording her podcast. But they use that enough times where you start to like think, you're showing me something and the shadows aren't you. You start looking around for stuff. Is it there? Is it not? We don't know. You have to see it for yourself. But like, to me, that's fun. It's an engaging thing visually. Like, yes, the story is slow and not necessarily too eventful, but like you have a lot to do here for most of the movie. It does drag on around the middle because like I do feel like Evie's skepticism lasts a little bit too long. It's like, okay, like girl, you seen some stuff, you heard some stuff, like, and all this stuff kind of starts to relate to your own personal circumstance. And like, can you not just accept your fate in this? You've been chosen, and you're here, so you got to figure this out. Like we're catching on to stuff that she should also catch on to, but she doesn't. So long story short, I really enjoyed this movie. I felt like I felt what it wanted me to feel. I felt dread. I felt hopeless. I felt like enchanted at times because they do a lot of stuff with old like children's, not stories, like nursery rhyme type songs, children's songs, like London Bridge, all that kind of stuff. And, I don't know the origins of that stuff. I do know, one of them is about the bubonic plague. But, like, aside from that, I don't know much about these songs and their origins. I'm sure they are sad in nature if you really look at the lyrics. But it really dives into the mythology of how sad some of these songs are. Also, demonically, there's a mythology regarding, like, a creature or a spirit that exists in this world. I don't know if these things are, like, based in fact in our world. But it is interesting to watch them research that. But that's not my favorite. My favorite part is just the sound. Like, the sound and the look of the movie. It's, like, it's impressive. Like, the budget, I think, was, like, $500K. And they really made this feel like a full-scale movie. It didn't feel like a project. It felt like somebody figured out how to get every penny into the movie efficiently and effectively. And I admire that. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. I don't think everybody's going to like it. I heard some people walking out like, yo, that was boring. A24 sucks. All these things. Could be true, like not all their movies are great. But this one to me is a good, like, I don't know. It's a good example of how much money we waste on movies. For this to be a $500,000 movie and to turn out this well, like, I think that's a exceptional thing within itself. So go see it. Support it. Don't go on a day you're tired. You might fall asleep, but it's a good movie. 9 out of 10.